Today we're working on section 1.4, subtract integers, and we're going to find that subtracting integers is very similar to adding integers. You need one vocabulary term for this, and that's additive inverse. You're going to see that word around a little bit in your homework. So the additive inverse is the opposite of a number that when added results in a sum of 0. So for instance, 3 and negative 3, those are opposites of each other, right? 3 is like on the right side of the number line, negative 3 is on the other side, 3 spaces away. And when you add 3 plus negative 3, you get 0. So 3 plus negative 3 is 0. 5 and negative 5, additive inverses. They're opposites of each other. 5 plus negative 5 is 0. So if I said, hey, what's the additive inverse of 7? You'd say, well, that's negative 7. It's the opposite of 7. What's the additive inverse of negative 10? Positive 10. So it's just the opposite of it. Okay, so we know what an additive inverse is. Then there's an important note that's going to basically tie what we're doing today into yesterday. We're going to write it on this line here. And what we're going to write here is that addition is subtraction. No, that's not what I wanted to say. I wrote that backwards. Subtraction is addition. Subtraction is addition. It makes same thing, just written in a different way. Subtraction is addition. So when we say that you're going to subtract integers, what you're really going to do is you're going to add the additive inverse. All right, so subtraction is addition. So what we're doing today is going to look just like yesterday. We're just adding one step. That's all we're going to do. The one thing we're going to change is if we have a number like 5 minus 7, we are going to say, instead of subtracting 7, we are going to add the additive inverse. So let's look at that 7 for a second. What is the additive inverse of 7? Negative 7, okay? So 7 and negative 7 are opposite each other. So instead of 5 minus 7, we're going to change that to 5 plus the additive inverse, which is negative 7. So instead of subtracting 7, we're going to add a negative 7. All right, so that's changing the 7 to the additive inverse and then changing it from subtraction to addition. I like to think of it usually as just, hey, we've got minus 7, we're going to put a plus in front of that and change it from 5 minus 7 to 5 plus negative 7. But that's all we're doing today, turning subtraction problems into addition, and then you can follow the exact same steps as you did yesterday. So 5 minus 7 is really the same as 5 plus negative 7. Negative 2 minus 4 is really the same as negative 2 plus negative 4. Negative 5 minus negative 3, well, that one, it is a subtraction. But in this case, we'll write it the other way. We're going to change this to really negative 5 plus negative 3, right? But what happens when you have two negatives in a row? Changes to a positive, right? So it becomes 5 plus 3. So all we're doing today is just adding one step in. We're going to take our numbers, we're going to turn it into an addition problem, and then we're going to solve it the same way we did for section 1.3. All right, let me go to the next slide. Hopefully this is making sense. Let's see here. Okay, so what you see here, this is the exact same chart that was in your notes from yesterday. I didn't change anything about this chart because we're going to be doing addition problems. We're just adding that one extra step into it, okay? So over here we've got negative 5 minus 7. These two numbers don't really have the same signs, but they're about to have the same signs in a moment. When you have a subtraction problem, we're going to change that to, instead of subtracting 7, we're going to add the additive inverse, or we're just going to put a plus in here between the 5 and the minus. So we're going to change this problem to negative 5 plus negative 7. So instead of subtracting 7, we're going to add a negative 7. And we can do that, okay? So we just turned this subtraction problem into an addition problem. And now when you look at this, you see a negative 5 and a negative 7, we're going to add the same sign. Well, we know how to do that. We did it yesterday. When you're adding the same signs, you add the numbers and then keep the sign of the numbers. So what is 5 plus 7? 12. And if they're both negative, then my answer is negative. All right, so just one extra step. You're going to change subtraction to add in the additive inverse, and then you are going to add the numbers, keep the sign if they're the same sign. Down below here, we've got 5 minus negative 7. Oh boy. What I like to do, the way I like to think of this is when I see 5 minus negative 7, I just say, well, two negatives make a positive. Or you'll see people where when they see two negatives in a row, they connect them with a line and change it to a plus into 5 plus 7. So 2 negatives make a positive. I think I was going to write that somewhere on here and I forgot. So maybe it's on there somewhere else. 2 negatives make a positive. If it's not somewhere else on the note sheet, because let me look at it real quick here. Oh yeah, that's not on there. Let's put that out somewhere on your note sheet. Maybe right up here, we can make ourselves a little note that 2 negatives make a positive. Maybe leave more room than I did. 2 negatives make a positive, okay? So if you have 2 negatives in a row, that's going to become a positive. So 5 minus negative 7 changes to 5 plus negative 7. And 2 negatives in a row make a positive, so this becomes 5 plus 7. So if you see 2 negatives in a row, change those 2 negatives into a positive. So this turns into 5 plus 7. And 5 plus 7 you could have done that, years ago, hopefully. Just boxing my answers right there. So when you see 2 negatives in a row, change that to a positive. 5 plus 7 equals 2. All right, over here, different signs. I've got a 5 minus 7. Instead of subtracting a number, we're going to change that to add in the additive inverse. So 5 minus 7 is going to change into 5 plus negative 7. 5 plus negative 7. And 5 plus negative 7 is going to be, now we have different signs, so we subtract the numbers. 7 minus 5 is 2. And then we keep the sign of the larger number. We have more negatives. The 7 is bigger, so my answer here is going to be a negative 2. Negative 5 minus negative 7, we're going to change it to 5 plus 7. The 2 negatives turn into an addition. Now I've got negative 5 plus 7. Those are different signs. We're going to subtract the 2 numbers. 7 minus 5 is 2. And we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. 7 is larger than 5. It's positive, so my answer is going to be a positive 2. I can just leave it like that. I left a number line on here. Honestly, I don't care for using the number line with these, but if you'd like to, here we've got negative 5 minus 7. We could just start at negative 5, and then when you subtract 7, you move to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's going to end up at negative 12, right? So you could use the number line to solve this problem as well. Or over here, 5 minus 7, I could start at the 5 on my number line, and then I need to go 7 to the left. I'm subtracting, so I go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I end up at negative 2. So the number line works to solve these as well. You just start at the first number, and then if it's negative, you move to the left. If it's positive, you move to the right. All right, let's look at some more examples of this. Nope, not going to work. I got to go to the computer real quick. All right. Find the difference. Rewrite using the additive inverse, then solve. So again, these are subtraction problems. We are going to change these to addition problems before we go any further. So step number 1, change it to addition. Then you can go through and solve it. So negative 3 minus 11, we are going to change that to negative 3 plus negative 11. So minus 11 is the same as plus negative 11. And now we know what to do. According to my chart on the top, I have the same sign. If I have the same sign, then I add the numbers. 3 plus 11 is 14. And keep the sign of the numbers. Since they're both negative, my answer is negative. So 3 plus 11 is 14. They're both negative, so it's a negative answer. All right, so negative 14 on that one. Negative 6 minus negative 4. If you have 2 negatives, change that to a positive. So you could take some people put a line through the 2 negatives and change it to a plus right there. I've got negative 6 plus 4. So 2 negatives become a positive. Whenever you see 2 negatives, it becomes a positive. Negative 6 plus 4. Now I have opposite signs. When you have opposite signs, you subtract. So 6 minus 4 is 2. And then take the sign of the larger number. 6 is bigger than 4. I've got a negative 6, so my answer is going to be a negative 2. Over here, 0 minus 3. Most people can do that in their heads. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. I could do this. 0, go 3 places to the left. I subtract 3, I end up at negative 3. Another way you could think about this is 0 plus negative 3. Right, so turn that subtraction into add in the inverse. And then we have opposite signs, because I don't have a minus over here, so this one's, we could think of this as positive. We have different signs, so we turn into subtraction. 3 minus 0 is 3, and then we say that take the sign of the larger number. 3 is bigger than 0, the 3 is negative, so my answer is negative. So I get negative 3 here. Negative 5 minus 0, we're going to change this to negative 5 plus, negative 0. I don't like that. You can't have a negative 0. But we can still follow the rules. It'll work out for this. So if they are the same sign, we add them. 5 plus 0 is 5. And then you keep the sign of the two numbers. Since they're both negative, we end up with negative 5. Also, if you subtract 0 from something, you end up with itself, right? So it's the identity property of 0. No, not the identity property of 0. Spacing it with the properties. But anytime you add plus or subtract 0, you end up with that number. All right, next up, 12 minus negative 9. If you see two negatives in a row, change that to an addition problem. Or change the two minuses into an addition, into an add-in. So negative 12 minus negative 9 is the same as negative 12 plus 9. We have opposite signs here. Opposite signs, the rule is that you subtract them, take the larger number minus the smaller. 12 minus 9 is 3, and then keep the sign of the larger number. 12 is bigger than 9, so we end up with a negative 3 on that one. Negative 5 minus 6, but now we've got the absolute value. So we're throwing some stuff from earlier on in the chapter into this, right? Remember that the absolute value sign is like a grouping symbol. So we do whatever is inside the absolute value first, then we can take the absolute value last. So we've got negative 5 minus 6. We're going to change this to the absolute value of negative 5 plus negative 6. Absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 5 plus negative 6, we turn this minus 6 into a plus negative 6. And now the rule is that if you have the same sign, we add them. 5 plus 6 is 11. And if they are the same sign, you take the sign of the numbers. These are both negative, so it's a negative. So we get negative 11. And I still have my absolute value there. And the absolute value of negative 11 is a positive 11, right? Absolute values are always positive. It's 11 spaces away from 0 on the number line. Next up, negative 56 minus the absolute value of 23. The absolute value is a grouping symbol, so we got to solve the absolute value first. What is the absolute value of 23? It's 23. So this problem is really negative 56 minus 23. And now we can follow our rules. Instead of subtraction, we're going to change it to add in the additive inverse. So this becomes negative 56 plus negative 23. Whenever we're adding numbers with the same sign, the rule is that we add them together and then we take the sign of the numbers. So 56 plus 23 is going to be 79. Feel free to write it one number on top of the other if you need help. And because they're both negative, my answer is negative. So I get negative 79 on that one. All right, last problem. Negative 45 minus 12 minus negative 2 minus 5 minus negative 13. That sure does look like a doozy, right? There's a couple different ways we could go about this, but when we have addition and subtraction throughout the whole problem, we just work left to right, right? In PEMDAS, we do parentheses first. Can't do anything with the parentheses. There's no exponents. But eventually, when it's all subtraction and addition, we just work left to right. So let's go ahead and change these to additions before we go any further. I think that's okay. So when we have these two negatives here, where we say, well, two negatives turn into a positive. So I can rewrite this problem as negative 45 minus 12 plus 2 minus 5 plus 13. All right. Now, I didn't have to change it to addition first. I could have just started on the left and worked to the right, and I would get the same answer. But I thought I would just do that first. I don't know, there's always a couple of different ways you can do it. All right, now I'm just working left to right. So I'm going to do negative 45 minus 12 first. Let's change this to negative 45 plus negative 12. Well, negative 45 plus negative 12, you end up with the same sign. If you have the same sign, you add them up. So you get 47. And because they're both negative, it stays as a negative 47. That is getting ugly, and I'm running out of room. Let me just take a second and rewrite this where I have some more space. In fact, you know what? Let's just go to the chalkboard. So I apologize. I ran out of room there. All right, so the problem is negative 45 minus 12 minus negative 2 minus 5 minus negative 13. All right, and then I said we're going to take these two minuses in a row, or minus and negative. We're going to change that to a plus. So this problem became negative 45 minus 12 plus 2 minus 5 plus 13. Notice how I'm writing down every single step and I'm working my way down the page, right? I'm trying to keep the numbers aligned, so 45 goes underneath the 45, the 12 goes under the 12. Try to keep it organized as best I can. All right, then we are going to start by solving this. I know I've already done this step, but we're going to rewrite this as negative 45 plus negative 12. And then I'll keep the other stuff as well. Plus 2 minus 5 plus 13. Okay, negative 45 plus negative 12. Same sign, so I add them together. That becomes 57. And because they're both negative, it stays as a negative 57. The rest of this I'm just going to bring down. All right. Once I've got these two solved, then I go to the next two numbers. Negative 57 plus 2. Those are opposite signs, which means I do subtraction. 57 minus 2 is 55, and I have more negatives than positives, so it's a negative 55. Everything else just comes down along for the ride. Now I've got negative 55 minus 5. I don't like having minus 5. I'm going to use the additive inverse, so it's going to change to negative 55 plus negative 5 plus 13. Negative 55 plus negative 5, I have the same sign, so I add them. 55 plus 5 is 60, and because they're both negative, it's a negative 60. So now I've got negative 60 plus 13. These are opposite signs, which means that I have to do subtraction. I'll just do it over here. 60 minus 13, this becomes a 5, this becomes a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7, 5 minus 1 is 4. So I'm going to end up with 47. And I have more negatives than positives, so it's negative 47. I know it's getting hard to read, but that says negative 47 down there. All right. Whenever you have subtraction, just instead of subtracting, just change it to add in the negative, or add in the opposite, and then it's the same as we did yesterday. Let me know if you need any help.